everybody. My name is Diane Gibbs. I'm your host, and this is Design Recharge, and I'm joined by my friend Kevin Greene, and I'm really excited to introduce him to you, and I'm not going to do a really long intro today. I'm trying something new. So Kevin and I met at Creative South, and I was impressed with his, he just has a great presence, and he was very easy to get along with, and we're going to kind of dig into some of how he gets freelance, because he has a full-time job. We're going to be talking about time, managing time, working a full-time job, and doing freelance. And how do you get freelance clients? How are you able to meet with clients if you have a full-time job? And how do you juggle some of the stuff you do for the design community within your regular life? If you have all this other stuff and you have a girlfriend, you have other things going on. It's not like you're just, you have a good balance. Maybe a good balance.
Maybe.
You're working on it. And then you're doing some side projects.
Yes.
So Kevin, give us a little bit of background. Just a quick, 2-minute background on who you are.
Okay. Well, first, thanks for having me, of course.
Finally.
It's been.
Since I asked you a long time ago.
Yeah, 2015. Let's see. I'm a branding designer from Northern New Jersey. I grew up right outside of New York City. I've been doing this design thing for quite some time. I went to a technical high school where it kind of began for me. It was Bergen County Technical School, and there was a design major. I took that. I went into college, design major at Montclair, and I've been designing ever since. So I've kind of really been in it since I was 14. My first logo projects happening back in like 2005 or so. And now I work as a full-time lead brand designer for an agency. And like you said, I have some freelance stuff on the side, not too much, but it's there. It's kind of sporadic. And I'm busy with a lot of things. I'm a board member of the United Design Guild, which is a local design organization. It used to be called the Art Directors Club of New Jersey, and that had been around since 1968, I believe. Last year, with Mike Solik and Will Turin and the rest of the board, we rebranded it to the United Design Guild, and we host events, both in person and online. We have drink and joy events. Mike Solik does like Twitch streams for local designers and stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay. So you and I met, was it 2015?
2015, yeah, Creative South. That was my first Creative South.
So I think it wasn't my first, but I think my first one was 2014. Anyway, you impressed me from that. We ate lunch together at Subway because I don't meet a lot of strangers. So we're standing in line, and it was you and another girl, and then I was with my friend Hannah. Mm-hmm. And we just didn't have a lot of time. It seemed like every single place we tried to go was closed. So that's why we ended up at Subway, which we don't
Subway. We, just to let everybody know, we're like, we're kind of sorts of fine dining. So Subway was, bottom of the barrel for us. But yeah, we made it work, and our friendship came from it. So
right. So it ended up being a great thing, but it wasn't our first choice of places. But I started talking to you. I think I was in front of you, or you were, I don't know. I think I was in front of you. And so then I was like, hey, do you want to, and this happens a lot at Creative South. I said, do you want to eat? Can I eat with you? Or do you want to eat with us or something? And I think it was just you and Megan. And so we just sat down. And it's, we have one of those 6 degrees of separation, which we didn't know, of course. We're just talking, and I told him that I was a professor. Do you want to start this story? Do you want to tell your part of how you remember it?
Yeah. So we started talking about ratemyprofessor.com, that review site, the Yelp of professors.
Because I said I didn't want you to go and read my reviews because I have bad reviews.
And I had, said that, I had this one professor who, if you read his reviews, because he spoke in kind of broken English. So if you read his reviews, you realize the only positive reviews he wrote himself. And I had said his name, and you almost leaped over the table. And we've been friends ever since. So
So
you can,
I think I'm a good teacher. I'm a hard teacher, and so some people who really can't take criticism have a hard time with me as their teacher. But I think they have a hard time in life as a designer because, hello, that's what we have to deal with, right?
Mhm.
So I said, oh yeah, I was accused of writing my own positive reviews, and then that's when Kevin was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, what am I? And I was like, really? And then it ended up I had worked with that man at my university, and Kevin had him as a teacher.
Yeah.
And Hannah, who was sitting with us, Hannah also had him as a teacher. So
Mm,
Hannah's in Alabama having him as a teacher, and Kevin's in New Jersey having him as a teacher. And it's just such a weird,
yeah.
small world.
Yeah. My
So,
4 years of college were his 4 years teaching there. I'm guessing he was just on a 4 year type of contract. And I had him more than any design professor. So
oh, that's funny.
unfortunately, I did not have Diane Gibbs. I would have left you a great review.
Well, so Paige had me and she said, you definitely develop a thick skin, and I'm thankful for that. I think you need a thick skin. So
Mm,
you having such a positive, so it was a weird, you're in New Jersey, I'm in Alabama. It's weird to know one of the same people, to
mhm.
be honest. It was, and that just bonded us from then on. But one thing I was impressed, you were starting a 100-day project, and I was like, Kevin, I would love to have you on the show. I just loved you from the get-go because you had such a warm personality. You were easy to talk to. You didn't just kind of let me do all the talking. I asked good questions and you answered. And so then maybe last year at Weapons, you finally
Yeah,
said yes. I said, hey,
that's
could
right.
you could you please do this show thing
Yeah,
I have? So I'm moving on to the next question, but
sure.
so kind of give us a little bit of your background. So you worked as a designer right out of school, and then you got this position, correct?
Yes. So when I was in my senior year of college, I had an internship at this company that had crafting brands like licenses, like Martha Stewart crafts and stuff. So I was doing some package design for them, but it was all by the books. It wasn't really creative work. It was more production work, I guess you'd say. They brought me on for a temporary position right out of well, as soon as I graduated. Well, I was able to enjoy my summer. I went on like a huge road trip with my friends, went around the country, did some camping. And then just as I was about to be done with all the fun, they asked me to come back to fill like a woman's maternity leave. So that held me over for a while. Right after that, a friend of mine was leaving her job. And it was odd because that wasn't really a traditional graphic design job by any means. It was more of an industrial design job. And it was to design high-end awards, so
Mm-hmm.
like trophies and stuff. And that was actually pretty cool. So I was actually using Illustrator for 3D work, which is very odd, but that's what they did. Um, so things like the Shorty Award trophy, um, and all sorts of trophies and stuff like that. It's not the most exciting work, but it was pretty cool to work in like mediums that I had never worked in before. Right after that, I started at the position I'm in now. And at the time, the company that I'm at, the agency that I'm at, was maybe half the size that it is. So there was the two co-owners, like a client management person, and then the web designer and me for branding. So yeah,
So the
that's been
so the company's grown, but it's also that you have grown with the company. So I think, a lot of times people's first jobs are, more production, like you said, right? But you're
Mhm.
learning a lot of things. You're also kind of seeing people want to see that you can take criticism. They want to say that you can work as a team. Those are things that having that first job may not be the best pay or may not be exactly what you want to do. But that's why I always encourage alumni not to stay at that first job for, more than 2 years, I'd say. I think that's
Mhm.
probably a good enough time because you've kind of maxed out at what you can learn and what they're going to allow you to do. Because a lot of times what happens is at that job, they see you as always the youngest or maybe not technically physically the youngest, but they see you as the newbie. And so you can't ever get that out. So you have to kind of move positions to be able to gain stature, I guess, or responsibility or whatever. So in those positions, when did you start freelancing, or were you always freelancing?
So I've never freelanced full time, but I've always freelanced sporadically since maybe probably my junior year of college. It's always kind of been project by project basis. Somebody knows somebody who needs something,
Mm.
and that's what it's kind of been since then. I've never done any sort of outbound marketing for myself as a freelancer or anything. It's just, hey, a friend from high school, works at a company that needs some work done, or a friend from college just left the job and that boss needs somebody to freelance because they can't hire anybody full time, and yeah, that's
So
pretty much how.
So it's been word of mouth. So I have to read something
Mhm.
that Doc wrote earlier today. He
Sure.
said, Kevin has a smile that hugs you. And I totally, that is it for me. Like that, he does. He has this, his presence. You feel warm. You feel like he's interested in what we're talking about if you're eating lunch at Subway with him. Right. And so I feel like this is one of those personality things that I would love to see if you think that this is something that people could manufacture. Um,
Mm.
because this is where maybe you have a superpower in that this is just so natural for you that you always, and me and you talked about this a little bit, like as a kid, were you outgoing? And I remember you telling me a story about your mom said, Kevin, go do something. And it was like play with somebody. And you were like, no, I'm good. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
You
hmm
want to,
yeah. As a kid, I kind of kept to myself in that way. When I was very young, yeah, my mom wanted to like play, and I was just like, no, I'm okay, like being by myself, And the whole design, well, the whole drawing and everything, the whole creative work started when my brother and I got a Super Nintendo. Well, he got the Super Nintendo, and it only came with one controller. So since he was an older brother, he would play, and I would sit there just drawing the characters from like the instruction booklet. So that's how that started for me. But yeah, I mean, I was always kind of a quiet kid until maybe high school. Then I was obnoxious through to college, and Jed's probably going to agree with that. But I find myself to be quiet again for some reason. I mean, people, I don't know. I flip flop. I'm introverted one moment, I'm extroverted the next.
so
I don't know.
ambivert, right? Is that what they call it? The
Oh, is that what they
people
call
who
it?
have both. So, but one of the things that you and I talked about the other day when we were doing your test that I think is another kind of one of your superpowers is your ability to laugh at yourself. Like I was
Mm.
like, well, how have you been able to, because you do come across as very warm and you're a good listener, you make good eye contact. So those are some soft skills that you really possess. And I said, how have you been able to do that? And when did you know, so Will Truen asked you to be the community leader for the United Designers Guild, right?
Yep, that's right. United Sign.
I'm like, oh no, that's you. Okay. So the United Design Guild. So, that says something. It's not like they're just going to choose the quietest kid in the bunch to be the
Yeah.
community lead, right? So
Yeah.
there's something about you that, and I asked you, I was like, well, what do you think it is? And you said it was, you think you being able to laugh at yourself has been key.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll just tell a quick story about meeting Will at Weapons of Mass Creation 2 years ago, I guess, or I forgot how many years ago that was. Summer 2016. I met Joe Barron, and I knew that he was from New Jersey because he was obnoxious when he was doing the ink wars, and he was like fist bumping New Jersey. And so I approached him. I was like, "Hey, man, I heard you're from New Jersey." Blah blah blah. He's like, "Oh, you have to meet Will." And then Will was handed the presidentship of the club from the prior president, and he asked after a few months of like just knowing him, he asked me to be the community leader, and yeah, that's how that started.
And
But
so that's on the board. So you're that, but I think that's a perfect position for you
yeah,
because you really do attract other people. People feel comfortable with you, but you also, I think one of the ways you make people feel comfortable is that you act interested. I'm sure you are interested in them.
yeah,
So just like you were saying with Joe, you found common, and you didn't know Joe before then, right?
yeah,
You just
yeah,
started
no,
like, hey man, I'm from New Jersey too, and fist bump.
yeah. And he's like a couple of miles from me, so that was kind of cool. But I met them all the way in Cleveland, So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. So then being community leader, so we're going to kind of wrap this back to
Sure.
freelance, because I think a lot of people, maybe if you're in the chat, you do work a full-time job, but you also want to freelance. You don't want to maybe freelance full-time, but you want to have some freelance money coming in or doing something different. And so one of the things that I think Design Recharge is about is really for freelancers. And so how are we able to do that? How are you able to start that? And so one of the things Kevin's been able to do is just, he tells people what he does and he shows people. He also shares work that he's doing, and then they like him. They like him as a person, so they want to, and they know that they can work with him. They know that he's a hard worker, that he's going to meet his deadlines. It's not like, oh yeah, Kevin, he's part of your dude, he's awesome. No, it's like he may do that stuff too, but he is somebody who I can trust, that's going to get the stuff done and done well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If I'm ever having a bad day, I'm going to come back and watch this because you're far too kind. So thank you. But yeah, I work night. Like,
yeah, but you
sorry.
wouldn't be as busy if you didn't meet your deadlines regularly, if you didn't push yourself and try new things. Because then, you know what you should pull up real quick is that animation for the card thing.
Oh, the holiday card.
Pull that up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Okay,
not right this second, but get it in the background.
Yeah,
but,
I have my loaded to.
So we talked about the other day, because I think that this is a common problem. Maybe you guys can holler back in the chat and say, yes, this is something I deal with. How do you find new clients? Because I was like, okay, you have client work. When do you meet with them during your full-time job? And he's like, I don't, I'm working for other art directors or other people. And I was like, how do you meet these people? And one of these girls is from high school, and not somebody, he was in high school in the same grade. She was like 2 years older than you.
That's correct. So yeah, all the freelance work I do, I mean, it's not even consistent. So it's not like I have like some crazy, advice for going off full time, because I'm not by means close to that. All of the freelance work that I do receive has been word of mouth, and yeah, contacts as far back as high school are important. So don't burn those bridges, because you never know what you're going to get from it.
So with like the girl from high school, how did she contact you? She was on Facebook or Instagram and she was following you? Or so I kind of am trying to like ask you the question, like, how do you get these people from high school? So what are you sharing on social media that they're seeing that you're a designer, that you're also doing branding or illustration, but you're also pushing yourself, just like the illustration or the animation that I wanted you to pull up? That's not necessarily something you do every day, but it's something that you wanted to do. You did it as a self-promotion and you sent it to friends.
Yeah, well, leaving high school, so the one person you're speaking of was 2 years older than me. And I think that there was just there was a pool of people that were like of a higher caliber of like, they were pushing themselves. I'm sure that's the case in some of your classes too. Like, so Sulik and I were Sulik was one grade below me. We kind of were among, 5 or so classmates that were known to be as productive as we are. So yeah, showing that work, and she did reach out to me on Facebook, asked if I could freelance for her, and yeah, that's.
So don't quit Facebook, right? Because it might help you get with older people.
That's the one thing. It's like, just keep those, I'm not even on there much anymore. I shut off notifications for it. It's not even something I frequent, but keep it, because things like that could happen, and share your work everywhere,
because you never know who's going to be seeing it, and you never know. So one thing I think Scott Biersack has done, there have been other people. Shauna has done this, Shauna Pinchezin. They've said, hey, I'm looking for work. And they've said, hey, I'm looking for work. Or Jason Karn. And I think sometimes it's just about being honest about, hey, I could use some work. And maybe you haven't ever been there because you're not full-time freelance. But if you're showing that you're freelancing and you're showing that you're doing work at work, then people at least know what kind of stuff you're doing. So I'm asking you, Kevin, but also the people that are here live, what kind of things are you sharing? And are these the things that you want to do? So Kevin, you had that animation. Can you pull it up? Can you do share screen?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So, and why did you do this? And was animation something that you already knew how to do, or you were doing a lot of?
So you can see my screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is my site. And this is, sorry.
And it's Greene.
So this is a holiday card that I designed. Yes, my name is Greene with an E at the end.
Just for people who are listening on a podcast.
So this is a holiday card that I designed. I wanted to send it out to friends, family, a couple of people that I was working for, just as a, hey, have a great new year, happy holidays. And then I decided, at the time I was kind of dabbling in learning After Effects, which I still am. And this is close to being a year old now, this project. But I made it into like an Instagram story as well, and got it printed on like this pearl metallic stock.
So some online printer?
That was through 4over, which is a trade printer. You have to like apply to print with them because they only like print with resellers. So I had to claim that I was a reseller, which I'm really not, but whatever. Gotta do what you gotta do.
Right. So, okay, so you did this. Again, this is how I think you're bringing your warmth in. So you're saying, hey, I'm going to print these things. I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to do an illustration.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going to take this illustration to the next level. And I'm going to do these for my friends and for people who were clients, right? Or for art directors or whatever. And so sometimes it's just word of mouth. And so people know you do something. If you didn't have this kind of work before, now people know you could do it, right?
Yeah. And when it comes to finding time for it, there's always something you can, well, not always. Sometimes you can't sacrifice things. But if you ask my friend Joe, there's a million times I'm like, sorry, can't play that video game with you. I have some freelance to do. And he gets upset about that. But that's the sacrifices you have to make. Like, I actually have a ton of Xbox games that I've never played because I prefer to do this, So it's all about prioritizing things and waking up earlier, staying up really late. I prefer to wake up at like 5 a.m. and get the freelance out of the way before I leave for work, then stay up until 2 a.m. working on it when I get home. So
okay, so let's talk about time a little bit. Your time management. So I think Jeremy Slagle's in here, and I asked Jeremy when he was talking about the chin up chinchilla. He makes decisions really fast, and I've seen this as a regular occurring for people who are managing both a full-time gig and doing some freelance, no matter how much, right? One, maybe they're getting up early or they're staying up late, but their priorities are really important and they're really set, they're really clear. But it's also about making decisions. You're not waffling all the time. You're really saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I have an idea. So can you kind of take us through a process of, maybe it was that holiday card. So did you have an idea? You knew you wanted to do a snowy mountain scene that was all green because your last name's Greene? I don't know. Can you take us through that? I know I didn't ask you that in the questions.
No, yeah, that's fine. So yeah, I wanted to do something that was, it was kind of, it could just be a holiday card without being something specifically for Christmas. I know that Greene is used a lot in Christmas graphics and stuff, but of course, Greene was like kind of like my personal brand that I was going with. And as far as like finding time for it, it was something I would put in like a half hour here, a half hour there, before dinner, after dinner. Yeah. I don't know.
So was it a sketch? Did you have did you know you wanted to do mountains, or did you know you wanted to be a shape builder sort of illustration, or do you know what I mean?
I went straight into Illustrator with that. That was never really sketched out or anything. Well, I probably did sketch some stuff. But that was quick. That was quick. I didn't spend too much time with it. And that leads me to like another thing as far as like time, and I would have to agree. I'm very quick when it comes to some things. My boss jokes around that like, hey Kev, I need a 5-minute logo, and you know, sure, I'll get it done by noon. But yeah, actually, one of my freelance, one of the people I freelance for, she says something like, watching me work is like, it's like I'm a robot. I just like kind of like zone out, and I'm done. It's crazy.
So making decisions, has that ever been, was that even, maybe it's just because you started in high school. Was that ever, a lot of people like push pixels, like, oh, I'm going to try this, or just trying to make it perfect. Is that just when you don't know what you want? Or are you able to say, I know it's not absolutely perfect, but this is enough. This is good. Or do you think it ends up being perfect? Or do you look back at stuff and be like, oh, I wish I could have changed that?
So both of those scenarios have happened for me quite often. There's actually this one illustration that I did years ago that it's an hourglass with birds on the side, and it's kind of like a tattoo illustration. I've designed that maybe like 5 different ways or 6 different ways over the past 6 years, and I'm just not done with it. Like, it's just never finished. But then there's other things like that card, like, I need to get this done, I need to get it printed, I want to get it out before, like, by December 1st. So I don't have time to, like, harp on these decisions. Just get it out the door, So sometimes, of course, done is better than perfect, like they say. So. All
right. So going back for a second, how do you think you show dependability? I don't know if people have told you in the past, maybe people that you work with at work, or people that you work, your clients, your art directors that you freelance for. How do you show that as a skill when you meet them? Or do they see it in your work? Or
I think that, at first it's a trust thing. They just have to believe that you're good on it. I mean, like I said, everything's word of mouth. So if the referral is from somebody that they trust, it's usually going to trickle down. And then, of course, since I have that person to kind of that's accountable for it, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to make sure that it's done the right way.
All right. So did you ever work retail or wait tables?
Yes, I did work retail. My very first job was at Aeropostale in the mall. And my very first day of work was Black Friday. in the busy, like, that location was the highest profiting store in the nation. And I started on the craziest day of the year. And I remember one of the executives was there. He was like a few steps below the CEO. And he was like, kid, like, if you could survive this, you're going to survive anything. So yeah, that was craziness, but yeah, so that was my first.
So do you think so I think attitude has a lot to play. Amy said that would have been her last day. But if that was her first, it would have also been her last. But so what did you go into that? How old were you think?
I was either 16 or 17.
Okay, so you have to have some sort of either confidence that you're going in like, I can do this, or you didn't mind talking to people, because sometimes you have to talk to people, strangers, and you also have to be able to say, okay, I can figure it out. So maybe having this design stuff in high school maybe gave you some of that. Maybe you were already having to present work. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out, because I think this is a great, I think retail and waiting tables are great for people who are more introverted. It really sucks, but it's a really good precursor to being a designer, because you have to be able to step out, and you have to be able to, and I think being great at customer service is really, really important as a designer.
Yeah, I think so. If you ever met my mother, I think you'd understand why I was good as a retail employee, because my mom doesn't take any crap. Like, my mom she was born and raised in Manhattan on the Lower East Side, and she's for lack of better words, like, customer is always right kind of person. So I dealt with a lot of like embarrassment when I was a kid, like, oh my God, my mom's a woman. And that kind of, I guess, conditioned me for the worst customer I could possibly have. And yeah, so I don't know. I knew how to handle them. You know, you have to make them feel like, like they are right, whether or not they are.
Right. So some of
So
it's anticipation, right? So, and maybe this is why Will asked you to do the community part of United Design Guild, United Design. I will get it. I want to get designer. I know this, but some of it's anticipation. So one is that we have this deadline. I need to give it to them before so that they're not stressed before their client comes in. So there's, maybe it's living with your mom and being raised, that she had some high standards, it sounds like.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I think my dad had high standards. I'm not that my mom didn't. My mom's listening, and I know my mom has high standards too. But my dad, you drink 2 sips of that water glass, it would better be filled back up, right? So he's really on the glass drinking, So do you think that those, how do you think it's just, because I knew it, I could tell by just how you were with me sitting at Subway and then how you were when we walked. The only thing is that you never got back to me about the 100-day project. But so that's where maybe that's your Achilles heel, right? Because you can't be all perfect and everybody's not perfect, right? Even Kevin Greene is not. So Mike, you said Mike would give you a hard time about this. You get all these ideas and these projects. So tell him about your Achilles heel.
So as much as I do, there's just time management is not that easy. So there's like this sweet spot I find that, like, if I just have 3 things to do, none of them get done well. If I have like 10 things to do, perfect. Like, for some reason, being a little more busy, I'm like on top of all of them. And then, there's a threshold for that too. Then, after that, it's like, it's all crap again. So the 100 Days project, I just never finished, to be honest. It's like the Inktober that I never finished, and a lot of people struggle with.
But do you think it's a priority thing? Like, you put other people's projects before these ones that are personal projects?
Yeah. Oh, certainly. If I, sometimes, well, I used to do this, like during my lunch break, I try to get, some work done here, some work done there on like personal projects, passion projects. So yeah, it's not that easy. And that's coming from someone who doesn't, I have a whole list of movies my friends want me to watch. Never going to see those. And it's just kind of like accepting that, it's prioritizing.
Well, like you said about the games, like there are certain things, this is just not a priority. If I have time for it and I'm just sitting around, you would rather do work or do something like that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So so with this animation, had you done any After Effects like at work or done any?
So the junior designer at work, he started doing some dabbling in After Effects, and I'm like, there's no way this kid's gonna know After Effects, and I'm not. So him and I, well, it's a healthy, competition.
That is good, but that's a driver, right?
Absolutely. So I kind of picked it up, and him and I teach each other things all the time. So I used to teach him stuff because he was my intern at one point, and now it's kind of the roles have been reversed. But yeah, he's fantastic. So we had done, or I took it upon myself to just take some work that had been unused, like monograms I had designed for logos, and kind of animate them. And eventually I'll have all 26 done, but I'm not going to set a date on that, just like I shouldn't have for the 100 Days project. So yeah, I kind of just picked it up, and I decided once I had that card illustrated and it was sent to print, like, let me at least take a stab at doing this in After Effects.
And you weren't, one thing I love is that you weren't like animating absolutely everything. You have subtle things. Mm-hmm. There's good transition. So the illustration moves up. It's not like a lot of things doing, and then the smoke comes out, and then the banner animates the most, mm-hmm. I think, out of all of it. But really you're showing different angles, I guess, like you would say, movie-wise, like panning up or down, or I can't remember I know I just saw it, but I can't remember if it pans down. I don't know what you call
It,
that.
it goes, oh yeah, pan. I don't know. I
You
don't
know
know.
how it's like,
Vertical
does
pan?
that, anyway, it doesn't matter. We clearly don't know what we're talking about. You can
Right.
ask your junior designer. Maybe he'll know.
Still no.
But how do you keep up with those interests? So obviously some are priority based, like can I get them done in this time frame? And then some are like, you had told me you just have this long, long list of things that you know you will never get done, right?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say that I'll never get it done. So,
But
I'm
your
just
list
hoping.
keeps growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
It's like, uh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go.
So, okay. So like that, the podcast that Sulik and I started, one day we just sat down for like, it was like a Saturday or Sunday, and we just sat down and built out a ton of graphics for this and like mapped out a schedule. And I think that, so we have kitchen work sessions. For those who don't know, Sulik and I live together in this house, and we'll have kitchen sessions where we'll just bring our laptops to the dining room table and sit down. And I think that is kind of, it's conducive to to being productive.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if I don't like schedule time like that, things just don't get done, and we're going to have a podcast episode about that too.
All right. So tell them about the podcast. So this is another kind of side project. How
Mm-hmm.
long has it kind of been in the works? And then when did you commit?
So a couple of months ago, I'd say, I was bothering Sulik, like, let's start a podcast. Actually, so for the United Design Guild, he was doing a live stream with somebody, and we had a great conversation downstairs in the kitchen when they were going to do the stream. We're like, we should totally do, like, record this sometime. And when we take like trips to Starbucks, him and I, we start talking about things. It's like, why don't we just put a microphone down, So after bothering him enough about it, he's like, fine, let's do it. And we've already recorded, I think, 5 episodes. So the second episode was posted this morning, and it's been great. It's kind of good to kind of catalog a few things up ahead. We have 2 episodes with a guest already recorded, and we have a schedule that goes into December. So,
Just as a tip, December is really hard to get everything done in. So I stopped doing podcasts in December. Well, I do one. I do the first week, just so you know. But you can do whatever. I'm sure you're going to be better than me. You're younger. And
well, it also helps that he's downstairs, and we record in this room. So, hey, Sula, come upstairs. Put down the microphone and let's.
That's true.
Yeah.
So it's just the two of you, right? So, but when he moves out, will it be more difficult? Is he moving out? Or somebody else?
No, someone else is moving out.
Okay, never mind
then. Yeah, no, it's still going to be easy.
Okay.
But even down the road, like, let's just hypothetically, if it takes off and we go into the hundreds and we're no longer living in the same house, we'll find a way to make it work. Whether it's, I mean, people like Dustin Lee has that Honest Designers podcast, and they're so far away.
2 people are in London and one's in South Africa. So yes, absolutely. And I'm going to be on it next week, just so you know, a little plug for them.
Awesome.
Okay. Back to you. So I wanted to share the podcast. So it's, you have it under Linktree. So linktr.ee/Fireside Podcast. And so then you guys, and Jed's like, it's hilarious. So there's your testimonial. So how would you kind of classify if somebody was like, hey, should I watch this or should I listen to this? Why would you say, who is it for? And then, and how would you, like, give me some characteristics?
Sure. So Mike and I have known each other, and it's so weird to call him Mike because even his parents call him Sulik, which is not true. But Mike and I have known each other for close to 15 years. We've known each other since high school, through college. We went to college together. So the podcast is 2 friends that have known each other for a long time in the same industry, talking about things we've either experienced or, trials and tribulations of a creative career. And I'd say it's, well, we do get, we don't filter ourselves too much. So if you have kids in the
Because
room,
my mom doesn't listen to yours, right? She's
that's
not
right.
coming live, so
Don't listen to the podcast. Yeah, it's we're not too vulgar. We're not,
my mom doesn't know how to listen to any podcast. That's not anything about it, you in particular. She couldn't listen to probably mine. And I'm making sure she's even dropped off of mine. So see, we're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that Linktree link is just it'll bring you to wherever you listen to it. So if you listen to Apple or Spotify or SoundCloud, etc. But our primary place to post things is our Instagram, which is also Fireside Podcast.
Right. And that's Instagram.com. Oops.
Yep.
No, it just keeps cutting out. Sorry.
Okay.
Instagram.com/Fireside Podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's been great. And it's, it's a very casual thing.
So Jed says it's just funny banter about design and life, and then it's not vulgar. So he was vouching for that. So I think that's a good kind of.
Okay. But Jed is also from New Jersey, and it's kind of a, fresh thing that, I mean, I don't know. You wholesome people in the South, I know you're no stranger to it, but there's just something about us that's, it is funny banter, but.
Okay, well, we'll let people decide, but I definitely want to encourage them to give it a listen, right? I think that there's something that's about this relationship between two designers that have known each other for a long time. And so maybe it will be interesting or fun, or maybe it'll hopefully help you build these long-term relationships with other designers. I think it would be really important. All right, so tell me about, this is a branding project that you've done at work, the pharmacy branding project. And what other projects have you worked on that have been the most fun at work? And then what have you, and then maybe it's freelance stuff as well, but that's also stretched you. So something that's fun and something that stretched you. And if you want to share your screen for this thing, you can.
Sure. Let me share that, sorry. So this is Advanced Orthomolecular Research. This was a branding project that has been kind of like ongoing for the past year. The client came to us last October. And so they're a $50 million nutraceutical company based in Canada, based in Calgary, Alberta. And they had this brand that had been around, I think they started in 1991. And they were launching in the United States for the first time. And they kind of just wanted to, completely refresh the brand from what it had been. So this was the identity for that. But they actually didn't want to change the logo at first. And this logo, it's not the greatest. I actually did this very, very quickly because they wanted to stick with an old logo that they had. And I pretty much was like, okay, well, this could be your label design with that logo. Or this could be your label design with something like this. I think this is actually the logo that I had done within like a couple of minutes, just to show them, you could build up that brand equity. You could build up that presence and that appearance. And I had a lot of pushback from them because they had that seal, this logo from like 1991, and they didn't want to change it. And, it was a shame. I kind of like pushed them, and finally they agreed. So we built out the brand for them, and I didn't do the web design. That's Dorothy at work, but I did design the identity, and that's been great. We actually
did you do the packaging too?
Yeah, the label design. Yeah, I didn't do that mountain illustration. That was a licensed thing, but that will probably be changing soon. Yeah, so these labels might be redesigned again. Who knows, but we'll see.
But this was fun.
Oh yeah, this was great. The one thing is, so I designed the whole thing from like top to bottom, but I also had to go in and like work on the supplement fact charts on the back of the bottles, which is like the ugly side of things you don't see. And I had to fix every, like type in every ingredient and every dosage percentage of like daily value and look at legal documents to make sure that, the things that were 6-point type weren't anything less than that, and make sure that the word dietary supplement was on the bottom 1/5 of the label, and that it was set in bold type, and, the quantities were a certain size, etc. Like, it's crazy how much the legalities that go into something like this.
So your attention to detail is pretty high.
Well, for something like this, it kind of had to be, because we did send the labels off to a lawyer, someone who specializes in like FDA things. Mm-hmm. So the FDA lawyer like marked it all up and told us what we had to change. And then, of course, there's also things like the barcode needs to be a certain size on the back of the label.
So,
as much as it was fun, it was driving me insane.
So, was this a project that also stretched you?
Yeah, I mean, this has kind of been my personal hell for the past year at work. But yeah, I would say it stretched me. It stretched me in how daunting the little details were. Because they actually have, so I'm only showing a few here, but they have 120 products.
Wow.
Yeah, so every label needed every product had a different color. The green ones, the ones with the green footer are vegan. The ones with the blue footer are non-vegan, whether or not they're vegetarian. They have the blue footer. So, and then we had to extend that brand, of course, into a marketing campaign. We brought on a creative director specifically for that lifeline thing on the palm. So that's the lifeline, and it was pretty much saying, wherever you are, AOR is too. So because we have so many products, right, wherever you are in your life, there's a product for you. And the creative director that we brought on board for that he was fantastic. He was actually the guy who wrote Eat Fresh for Subway. He wrote that copy for them. So yeah, he was cool. He had quite an impressive portfolio, and yeah, so and it's still ongoing. This project has led us to a few other nutraceutical and pharmaceutical brands that are currently in the works.
One thing I got from you explaining that, can you hit stop share?
Sure.
One thing I got from that, Kevin, is you said we have gotten more, like you were talking about the ad campaign, and it was about them as a company, right? But I think that's another one of your superpowers, is that it starts to be your, and I think getting on board with a client, even when it may not seem super exciting, that I think that's another one of your superpowers, is that people think that, because I really do think that you get excited about it and you really like to see people grow and so I feel like that's something that other people can. If this is not something that you do automatically, it's about finding a way to get on board and to be really excited about what's going on with one of your clients, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very important.
How do you do that? So somebody might not think that this is really all that exciting. So how did this become exciting for you, that pharmaceutical company?
Just being a creative, you can see where they are and where they can be. And that's something you can get excited about. And sometimes it takes doing some versions of your work that they're not expecting you to do, so you could show them that. Like I said, their original label had this logo that was, it was terrible. And I just couldn't, it would kill me now if all this work I had done had that logo on it. So I had to take it upon myself and say, listen, this could be it, or this could be it. And we're the visionaries to show them that, these executives, these business people are not going to take it upon themselves. They're just not going to have that in them. It's kind of, instinctual in a way.
And it maybe wasn't something that they came to y'all say, hey, we need a new rebranding, but realizing once they got in, you were like, we need to do this because this is going to make them better. And so you did it without necessarily saying that we're going to get paid for this, but this is so critical to y'all being able to put your best foot forward.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So, that's kind of the thing to get excited about, is that you can make a change for them that they're not expecting.
So that's strategy and being excited about the possibility of what they can do. So there's another question that I think a lot of people get. How do you broach the subject with your current boss, right? Your boss, about freelancing? Because does your office, does your current place of employment have a policy about freelancing?
We've never discussed it, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, we just never, like I said,
but it's not like something you hide.
It's not something I hide, but it's not something I'm like flaunting when I walk in, like, guess what client I got, you know? We've never discussed it, but at the same time, I think that it's important for all sort of creatives to kind of have multiple outlets of how they work, whether or not that's for themselves or not, whether or not that's a passion project or another company, another agency, another client, whatever it may be. Like, why not get dirty in all of these possible fields?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we've never discussed it, but I don't know of any. I don't know. A lot of friends freelance, and I've never asked them whether or not it's been an issue or not. But I don't know of any. None of my friends have any issue with with their full-time situations and freelancing.
So I had somebody this weekend. I was talking to one of my alumni, and she was telling me about her job and that her boss didn't want her to go to something or didn't want her to get involved with something. And it was really outside of work, like you being the community lead for and on the board for United Design Guild.
Yeah.
That seems like something that is outside of the office, but it will only help you as a designer. I don't really, it's in the same sort of vein of you being a freelancer. So I know Jason Craig really, whenever he did freelance, he always freelanced outside of his, the industry within where he lived. He always went to San Francisco or New York or something for clients. He wasn't competing with the people in that general thing. So if you were going out and, just pick, if the company you work for only did pharmaceutical or healthcare, and you went out and tried to do healthcare as well, sometimes that's a whatever of interest, conflict of interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
Yeah, that's the one thing. It's like there is I understand the whole non-compete thing, but there is no competition there. Like the clients are people that they'd never connect with because they're people I know from high school. So it's like, I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. And they're entrepreneurs too. Like they have, other than the agency, they have their own side businesses and stuff too. So they completely understand that entrepreneur spirit. And they've been fully supportive of like the United Design Guild thing. They came to one of my drink and draws. They're great. They're great guys. So it's a shame that some people are kind of met with that that friction against getting involved with things. Like why wouldn't you want your employee going to the conferences or starting some sort of organization? That's so silly.
It is. And I think that it's a control thing a lot of times, that they don't understand it, or they don't see how the benefit would happen because it maybe doesn't, they haven't tried it, or they've tried it, but it didn't benefit them. But everybody's different. And so you're going to be benefited from different things than Sulik would be benefited from, possibly even. So we've gotten through most of them. We have like 6 minutes. So how do you recharge your creative battery? I loved this answer when we talked about this the other day.
Oh, about me like going away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, there's the passion projects thing, which we talked about. Twice a year, it seems like it's happening twice a year, I go to Maine with my girlfriend, and we go camping for like 5 days. And I kind of try to get away from the screens entirely. Of course, I take some photos and stuff, but besides that, I try to disconnect entirely. And when I get back, it's like I took 2 months off. It's great. So that's my number one kind of recharge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and I was telling you that I had either read in a book or heard it. I think it was I've been listening to a lot of old NPR podcasts called Hidden Brain. And I think it was on that one where they had done the study of people who they were same income kind of, so it was lower income housing and people who had courtyards that had shrubbery and trees, and then they did concrete. They had concreted the courtyard. And the people who lived in the concrete courtyards, majority, or it was clear that the people that in the concrete courtyard had more physical ailments and more anxiety, depression than the people that were in Greene, that even had just a little bit of shrubbery or grass or something. And I thought it was, after Kevin and I had talked about it, they also did a study where people who were going on a 3-day weekend and they went to the woods, or they went where they were around more nature, that they could still see a positive health effect for a month down the road. So it left a lasting impression for a month. So I guess I'm just trying to tell people to go outside more.
Go outside.
But I think that it was really interesting because you said, I might go for five days and it feels like I am recharged for 2 months. It feels like I have been out of touch, or I've unplugged for 2 months, and you have that benefit. And I just wanted to say that there's these studies done. And so go outside, I guess. All right. So what advice, this last question, I can't believe we're going to make it through. What advice would you give your younger self? And, well, tell me that one first.
So I would tell myself not to worry about making time for everything, because the most important things, you're going to do them. You're going to take care of them. There was some quote that so that wedding I went to in Virginia, the best man said some quote that was like, "Don't ask a man what's most important to him, see how he spends his time." You could look it up. I'm quoting a best man who quoted something else. So, but that kind of resonated because it's true. You're going to make time for the most important things, whether it be your family, your friends, or your work. And I've seen a lot of posts recently within the past week, and I don't know if this was maybe a prompt for like one of those drawing things, but I've seen a lot of like, it's okay not to do everything, and we often get wrapped up in that this is a part of the reason I rejected your offer to do this for 3 years now. So that I never felt worthy of it. That you had people on like Jason Karn and whoever it may have been, and I'm just like completely intimidated by that. Like, I don't have the body of work that these people have. I don't have the accolades that these people have. So, but it's okay. Like, that's all right. And I think that young designers need to understand that.
And sometimes you just have to say yes, because sometimes people see something in you that maybe Jason Karn doesn't have or somebody else doesn't have, and you don't see it as anything special because you've lived with it your whole life. But Kevin, you are special. You really do have a unique way of looking at things, of getting on board. You have a way of making people feel really welcome and loved. And so that's something that's so good about you. And it's probably really goes into you being a good designer and you being good with clients and you being a good team player, of how you are competitive with your junior designer, and that you gave Dorothy credit. I don't know what Dorothy's last name is. I didn't know she did the website, but that's the kind of person that you are, is that you really do feel you give credit where credit's due. You also really bring people together, whether it's at work or it's outside of work. And I just think that that's something that's really unique and special. So that's why I wanted you on a way long time ago. And I knew it that day. All right. So what's next for you?
What's next for me? Let's see. Well, yeah, Sulk and I have that podcast going on.
And that's once a week? How often is it published a month?
We'll be posting it every Wednesday.
Okay.
We'll be trying to post it every Wednesday. Like I said, we have like 4 episodes already ahead of us recorded. So we're going to try to keep that, like, we'll record another one this weekend, which won't probably go up for another month. And
are y'all doing the editing?
Yeah, so we're recording it actually on this laptop, and there's barely any editing. We're just adding, like, my brother is the one who's recording those intros for us, and they're ridiculous. And so I'm slapping that at the beginning. We're slapping a little ending at the end. And unless there's something where we're like, oh, this whole segment was ridiculous, let's remove it. That's the only editing we're doing. And then, we're putting together a graphic we're not spending too much time on, so we just get it out the door. And it's been so much fun. It's been the thing is, I don't get to illustrate that much at work. So things like this that I'm illustrating, our faces split in half. It's fun to do. It's fun to take the initiative on those type of things outside of work.
Are you illustrating each episode, like an episode graphic each time?
Yeah. We're trying to do something different for every single one. For next week's, it's just going to be a photo that I took during our segment with our first guest. And maybe I'll illustrate something in the photo. Like the one for today had the illustrations of tattoos on our faces.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Right?
Yeah, on our next. So I'm going to try to do something, Suluk and I are both going to try to do something different for every single episode. Just to keep it
right. Oh, so I can't hear you now. And you're black. Okay, now you're back.
Oh.
Okay, so what is the vision for the podcast? So you kind of said, you've kind of given us kind of an idea of, where you think that it's giving you time to talk to Suluk and to guests as well as, and you're getting a chance to do illustration, which you're not really doing at work. So it's some conceptual illustration, your face doesn't really split and half of it's Mike and half of it's you, but that's what the illustration is. So it's feeding some other needs that aren't maybe getting met. What else? Cause you said, I don't know if we'll get to 100, but what would be the awesome thing that you start getting paid for this, or what's like the dream vision?
Yeah. So just in the way that I started with him, like, hey, let's sit down and record our conversation. That's pretty much I don't want to set an expectation further than that, because this could be another 100-day project that never comes to a complete end. And in that way, it's very casual. It's very candid between him and I. And we're kind of keeping our expectations just as, loose and casual. So if we get to, 25 episodes and then we take a break for 6 months and then pick it back up, I'm going to be okay with that. And I think that people that, beat themselves up over that type of thing, relax. Because the one person who's paying attention to it the most is you,
Yeah. Well, there, I don't know if you ever listen to Malcolm Gladwell. Do you know who that is?
Malcolm Gladwell. I know that. Yeah.
He's written a lot of books, but he does a podcast, and it's 6 podcasts a year. That's it. Just 6. Wow. And he does it in the summer. It may be more than maybe 8, but it's really low number. But I love when they come out. And it's really, to me, you're right. It doesn't matter. People will pick back up. Mm-hmm. It's about setting expectations. If you're going to take, 6 months off, you should probably let people know. But I think that, and that's been one of the things I think for December. I just think sometimes it's really hard. You feel like people are waiting on you, but you also, if you just set the stage, say, hey, I'm not doing it in December, or I took July off this past year, which I'm super thankful I did. I'm not sure if I'll do that again or not. I think it helped this past summer, but I'm not sure if it's necessary. I just think you got to kind of go with the flow. So I really want to encourage you, and I'm really thankful you said yes. And I'm glad I think I tracked you down in the basement at Mahal's, right at WMC. I'm like, I want you to do this with me. Please come on my show. So
I'm grateful you pushed me for it,
Okay. Well, I'll get a hug in April for it. Absolutely. Okay. So I want to make sure I share all your links. So you guys can follow Kevin at Greene, Greene, design.co. And then his Instagram is Greene with an E, with 3 E's actually, Design Co. And then Twitter, Kevin Greene with an E on the end. And which is amazing. You have that for your Twitter.
It's a pretty common name. I have a personal Instagram, and then of course the design Instagram.
That's what I kept tagging was your personal. It was it's fine. _ Greene, right?
Yeah, and I don't even know if I want to. I'm so torn between that. It's like, do you keep the 2 Instagram? Do you just? I know. Use one? Some people use one. Some people post everything to one. But then I have friends who don't care about design and they don't care to see all this work. And then, then I want to post a photo of my girlfriend and I, but I don't want that to be involved with all my work and all the people who follow me for my work. It's a mess. So
I feel like that's a whole episode, right? Like Mark
yeah.
saying he has the same thing. I have the same thing. I really do. Maybe when we talk to, I'm blanking. She's a letterer. She presented at WMC Fest Lisa Quine. She and I are going to talk about some Instagram and some analytics.
Yeah.
So maybe her and I will talk about that. I know.
Yeah.
So it's like,
too.
what do you post and when? And so for me, it's like I have Design Recharge. Now you have 3, right? You have Kev Greene, you have Greene Design Co., and now you have Fireside. So what do you post on some? And it is, it's.
And then there was Daniel Hare, who once said, like, I'd rather have all of it. It's a journal of my life. I'd rather have that journal in one place, to look back on years from now. I'm going to see my work and my family all in one place. That makes sense too. So I've been so torn. For now, I'm keeping one. And then of course Fireside.
Okay. So I think I just want to repeat that Fireside Podcast is Instagram, and then you can also get there from link tr.ee/Fireside Podcast, and you can get it wherever you get your podcasts as well.
Yep.
And then United Design Guild, we'll just go ahead and plug Will there as well. So
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you could find all those links on my site, and the Instagram has a link in the bio for the link tree, so you don't have to type that in. That's all.
Perfect.
The links are somewhere.
They just have to be a little resourceful, right?
Yeah.
So you guys can always follow me. I'd appreciate the like and the thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, or if you want to give us a review on iTunes, that would be great. My goal is to have a Patreon up by November. I hope November 1st. I know that's next week. I think that's Thursday. I'm recording some stuff this weekend. Hopefully it won't be rainy. So I thank you guys for keeping my feet to the fire, and hopefully I've got some good levels of things to do. But I just wanted to tell you, Kevin, thank you so much. I'm glad it was a good build up for you, so you can watch it again and listen. But I really do appreciate you being the way you are. You are unique, and I'm very thankful to have people like you in representing design. You make the industry better by having people like you in it. So I'm very thankful for you, and I'm glad you finally said yes.
Thank you for pushing me, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Anytime you want to eat Subway, we'll go eat Subway or any other meal.
Yeah, maybe we'll find something better to eat next time.
I hope so. All right, guys, we will see you next week. We are doing a repeat of kind of starting over because we had a little bit of audio issues last week or 2 weeks ago with Bill Gardner from Gardner Design. He does Logo Lounge, and it is the last day to log in and upload your logos to Logo Lounge for the year. It's Logo Lounge 11. So Kevin, you should probably enter stuff too. It's just $100 a year to enter stuff. And then you also have access to all the stuff that's behind the scenes. So just want to give you guys a heads up. You have one more week to be able to do that. And then I will see you guys next week. And there will be some extra content in the Patreon that I am already recording. So I really appreciate it. And look, we were just 9 minutes over. But Kevin, thank you.
Take care.
And we'll see you guys next week.